We are in, good morning. We are in Tzidkas Hatzadik Ayin Beis. In this chapter, this paragraph, so Rav Tzadok is explaining the mechanism of how to perform a miracle. It's important for everybody to understand. If you want to perform a miracle, or if you want to go to somebody to perform a miracle, how does that work? I just want to give this tons of introduction. That miracles, like going to somebody to perform a miracle, is not like one of the main stays of Yiddishkeit. In fact, throughout all of the Nevi'im, all of the Nevi'im, the Treyas, Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, don't find, to my knowledge, any miracles. No miracles. They said Nevuah, but they said Nevuah, and they gave Musar to the people, and they gave Teichacha, but miracles we don't find. Maybe they did miracles. They had to do something in order to be qualified to be a Navi, but the Rambam tells us that those miracles that they did were not like miracles like splitting the sea. Those were miracles more like tomorrow it's going to rain. They have to give some kind of an oath that their nevuah is correct. And then the Rambam is Meir, as everybody knows, on the fact that, and that's not a reason to believe them. There are many non-Jewish people that were able to do miracles. Probably Bilam did miracles. A lot of people did miracles. That doesn't make you into a Navi, Navi Yisrael, a Navi Emes, a Navi of the Word of Hashem. That's just an oath. That's an extra oath that you have to do to show your qualifications. It's something very external. So we don't find in most of the Nevi'im any kind of miracles. Where miracles are recorded are Moshe Rabbeinu. We find Moshe Rabbeinu did miracles. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Eliyahu Navi did miracles, and Elisha did miracles. After that, can anybody think of any miracles? No miracles that we know.
And the son's
That was, he didn't perform that miracle. A lot of miracles happen to the Jewish people. Yom Ha'atzmaut. But it means to say that you go to a miracle worker and he performs a miracle. After most of the miracles that Moshe Rabbeinu did were by Yetzias Mitzrayim. Kriyas Yamsuf, Eser Makos, Torah itself, a huge amount of miracles. After that, all that happened, and we walked around for 40 years in the Midbar, including the making the Mishkan and all of that. We find only, Chazal point out, we find only 5 miracles that Moshe Rabbeinu did. First of all, we don't know anything about those 38 years altogether. We don't know what happened during those 38 years. They're not recorded in the Torah or in any other book of history, to my knowledge, what happened in those 38 years. But there was not a lot of miracles. There was the miracle of the Nachash Nechoshes that Moshe Rabbeinu did, that he made a copper snake and healed the people. That was one thing that he did. He called upon the Tzira, Tzadik Reishayin Hey, to attack the enemies, and created a sort of a natural disaster which helped us win the war. He did a miracle before we came into Eretz Yisrael, even though he didn't come in, the miracle of Nachal Arnon, where the two mountains crushed together and killed the enemies. The miracle of Korach, where he said, let the earth open up and swallow them alive. Aaron did miracles. He did with the Prachim, Miriam, did the Bereshil Miriam. And of course, Moshe Rabbeinu was hired as Haman. Interestingly, that was before Torah, but interestingly, there's a question in Chazal and Medrash Rabbah whether we give credit to Moshe Rabbeinu for that or not. Was it Hashem taking care of the people, which that often happens, or was it that Moshe Rabbeinu was moirid es Haman? And even sometimes, this is very important for the background here, sometimes you could say a certain miracle happened b'schus Moshe, b'schus Miriam, b'schus Aaron, b'schus Yoshua, But that doesn't mean they performed the miracle in the same way as if, God forbid, somebody was sick and they would go to a great tzaddik and ask, can you do a miracle for me? I need a refuah shalema. So that's like a miracle. So that, and it happens. We've all heard great stories about this, but it's not the hallmark of the Bible. Yeah.
And the hitting of the rock, even though.
So hitting at a rock. Well, no, it's a better question than you're asking because you hit the rock twice.
But also the miracle, meaning water came out of the rock.
No, there were two stories, I'm saying. One story was he hit the rock and water came out, and that was perfectly natural, perfectly miraculous. But is that counted by Chazal? I'm not sure. Right, so you have to make that distinction. The second time, maybe it was also a miracle, but he was told not to do it. So that's the difference. He was told not to do it. But actually, that it's like the Rambam says. The Rambam says this lashon very important in Hilchos Deis, Parak Beis. The Rambam says that, as I just mentioned, we don't believe people that they're prophets or even holy men because they could do miracles. And Kol Hanisim Sha'asa Moshe, the Rambam says this language, I believe this exact language, Kol Hanisim Sha'asa Moshe B'midbar L'tzarech Yisrael Haya. There was a need, and so he did some kind of a miracle to help the people get through the Midbar. But like I say, the Man, the Ananei HaKavod, it was a miraculous existence, but it wasn't Moshe the miracle maker. It was Hashem taking care of us in the Midbar. Okay, with that introduction, says Rav Tzadok Ayin Beis. Efshir lasais moifsim al pi Torah. One way to do miracles is al pi Torah. Al pi Torah, what he means here, trust me on this because I've read it about 10 times. Al pi Torah, he means using the Torah. In our vernacular, when we say al pi Torah, it means that you're looking inside and you're getting the halacha. When he says here al pi Torah, he means that sometimes miracles are done by using the Torah as a vehicle, as a mechanism to create a miracle. V'kach haya kol mofes Moshe Rabbeinu. This was the story with every miracle that Moshe Rabbeinu did, all of a shalom. He was, of course, the Sar HaTorah. Shepasach, and these are just get these words like ingrained in us. Shepasach shar chadash b'divrei Torah. Ve'al pi oisai or b'divrei Torah haya nimshach shfias or ba'olam lifol oisai davar. This is like wow, just wow. How does a miracle work? A miracle works. Hashem created Teva. So Teva is a good thing. Reshus bara Elokim, as Hashemayim, as Haaretz, Teva. The water goes this way, and the things go from up to down, and plants grow, and miracles. They're not miracles. They're miracles in the storm, I guess, but they're not miracles as that's nature. And nature is beautiful, by the way. I don't have to tell you, like, there's nothing that's more relaxing than taking a walk in the park along a brook of water. Now, imagine the water would start going the other way. This would not be relaxing. Let's say all of a sudden there wouldn't be any gravity. Get me out of here. You got to pay people a lot of money to go walk around in outer space. So, nature is a good thing. Hashem did a good job creating miracles. So once in a while, we want to be Mashana the nature. How do you do it? Al pi Torah. What does it mean, Al pi Torah? So let's read the words one more time. Pasach shar chadash b'divrei Torah. You open up a new gateway from the Chomer Gelem, if you will, from the original creative material that Hashem created to create the world. In other words, you climb all the way up there to the top before Hashem created the world, and through Torah, your poseach shar chadash, you could create a new piece of teva. So you can go, teva is what we live in, and if you want to, in a case of an emergency, like with cases where, like with Moshe Rabbeinu, you can sort of climb up above that teva, which is in this world, the teva that we're all living in, and you could climb up above it into a higher world. The only place that's a higher world is Torah. Torah this is not just like the godless HaTorah. No, Torah was what Hashem used to create the world. as Chazal say, Istako Baraisa Ubara Alma. So Hashem used the Torah. More specifically, the Zohar is Meirich on the fact that he used the Oisius of the Aleph base. So the Aleph base, when you think about it, just as the simple Aleph base, whatever they look like exactly, not important. But the Aleph base, the Oisius Torah, Aleph base, Gimel Dalet Hey, that Aleph base were the first physical manifestation of Hashem's world into this world. Yes? Meaning, I don't know what programming works, but I do know this, that in other words, let's say the world was tohu vavohu. Not let's say it was. There was no world as we know it. There was something even before tohu vavohu. Hashem, Zohar speaks this out, but it's simple in Chazal. Istako baraisu bara alma. Hashem took the Torah, letters of the Torah, and with it, he created the world. So that Aleph and that base, that's why it says, the Zohar Tarshan is in the very first pasuk, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim. It's also Gemara Menachos. Es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. Es means Aleph to Tav. So he created using in Zoharic language, Asvin Ravavi, the big letters he used, and that was the first physical manifestation. It's like us. Like, let's say we want to talk or create. So the first step, what do you have to do? You have to write it down, let's say, or create it in a factory. Go further back. You have to write it down. Go further back. You have to speak it out in an essay. Go further back. You just say an idea. Where it all starts with is da. That's where it first starts. So the beginning, the Aleph base, if you will, of the Bria was the Aleph base. This is something that the Torah teaches us and we would not know without the Torah. And that's why, by the way, I don't know much about this, but I can tell you that in Kabbalah, there's a lot of work done with playing with the Oisius, Tzirufei Oisios and Tzirufei Shemos, and all of that has to do with I don't mean to say this in a disrespectful way, but something like you're saying, with hacking the Bria. Meaning it's a workaround. Here's Teva, and you can go Lamala Mina Teva, even as we're going to learn Lamala Mina Zman, because none of that is created in that world up there. Let's call it the world of Atzilus. And over there, you can hack it, and you open, and his words, Shepasach Shar Chadash B'divrei Torah, you open up a whole new gateway through this Divrei Torah into the world, and then you've actually made Valpi Oisai Or. You know that everything when it comes to the Brias HaOlam is called Or. Meaning, there's the Or Makif, there's the Or Pnimi, all these words you've heard. So, everyone's seen the charts with the Or is a mashal. It's not really Or, as we understand, not light. But what it means is the energy of the Bria comes around the world of spheres, into the world of the spheres, right? Or Pnimi, or Makif, but it's all Or. So what happens when you use the Torah, you're going right back to before there was a Bria, and you're creating a whole new Or that comes into life, into the world. You've actually made a shinoi in the Bria. See, I'll tell you a chiddush. I don't know if it's a chiddush, but I think this is true. That when we, two things. When we say, always, we often quote, Istakol baraisa bara alma, it's usually translated as the Torah is the blueprint of the world. And what that means is that you can't open up a chumash and say, well, this no longer applies to us, or it doesn't fit in with the world, because the Torah is the blueprint of the world. Istako baraisa bara alma. It has to fit in. That's the whole Bria. So that's not a good enough shot in Istako baraisa bara alma, that Hashem had the Torah. Before he created the world, he created a Torah. And then he looked into the Torah and used the oisius of the Torah, the Asvin Ravravi, and with that, he created a world. Here's the chiddush. The chiddush is that we can do the same thing. Like if you want to change the Brias HaOlam, this is not limited to Hashem. Istako baraisa. learn some Torah Lishma. And what you're doing is you're istako baraisa, like right now we're istako baraisa, ubara alma, and you're creating an or chadash into this world. How cool is that? I mean, like istako baraisa bar alma is not limited to Hashem. We can do the same thing every time you learn Torah. And I don't want to confuse this because those of us that went to yeshivas are used to hearing about the Kehillat Torah, and this is all true. But that's not what we're discussing. This is Rav Tzadok. So what we're discussing is that actually, as opposed to working within the bria, actually working from above the bria, higher on the tree, and from that you're actually making a shinoi in the bria gufa. It's a shinoi in the istako baraisa bara alma.
So when he says efsha, does that mean that one can and it's a good thing, or it's possible to do it, but it's not something we should be doing?
He doesn't commit to that. As a rule, you're not supposed to try to change the teva. You're supposed to work with it, not because because it's a good thing. it's like the last thing. I mean, thank God for teva.
And the oisius is the chayv.
The what?
Saying the oisius is the chayv.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The osios are the Homer Golem. I'm losing my English. What does that mean? Raw material. The raw material of the bria.
Can I just ask
Yes.
a simple question though? Why should there be any need for human beings to change nature and reality instead of us davening and Hashem so sees that's the right thing? Hashem will do that on his own.
100% right, and you're hopping to the next sentence. But he always says a simple question, but never, it's never simple. Look, there is a reason, though. And the reason one would want to change you mean, why not with tefillah? That's one question.
Showing us how to change teva, but we're not really supposed to, but this is the way to
Right.
do it.
Sometimes to prove Hashem. Sometimes you just have to, like you would think a Navi, but let's say Moshe Rabbeinu needs to demonstrate that Hashem's taking care of us in a miraculous way. And the probably most quoted Ramban in Chumash and Parshas Bo there, if you look at it carefully, everyone quotes this Ramban that the Pshat and the Nas Nigla is only to teach us what a Nas Nistra is. I recommend to you, it's not for now, to read that Ramban inside. It's about 20 lines. And it's unbelievably different than the way it's always quoted. In fact, he speaks about, as all the Rishonim someplace or another do, speak about why Hashem created the world altogether. Every Rishon talks about this somewhere. And that's where the Ramban talks about in Parshas Bo. But there, one of the things that he says is that sometimes it's important for Hashem to show us an open miracle, Kriyas Yamsuf. Open miracle. Wouldn't have happened. That did not come through Moshe Rabbeinu, as the Chumash says before. Did not come through our tefillah, as the Chumash says. That was just a miracle that Hashem did as a mofes for Klal Yisrael.
So Anita Mendoza said, just like Hashem made it.
So what was that? I don't know. Good question. Here are the key words. I'm going to say it a third time, just so we get it clear. Shepasach, when you learn Torah, you're dealing with the very, very high level osios of the Torah. Pasach shar chadash b'divrei Torah al pi oisai ar, and according to that, by the way, that's how I know what al pi means. Al pi oisai ar b'divrei Torah haya nimshach. Now you opened up a whole new stream through Torah. So now you have new oisios flying into the world and creating a reality that did not exist before. Nimshach shvias or ba'olam lifal oisai davar v'afsher lasa is another way of doing a miracle. This is like a Rebbe. If you want to be a Rebbe, this is the manual. Yeah. Another way to do a miracle, afsher lasa is ayidei tefillah. The other way to do it is tefillah. Completely different mechanism. Different system, Tefillah, you daven for something. Probably what we're more familiar with, right? Hashem give me refuah, Hashem give me parnasa, Hashem give me shalom bayis, whatever your thing is, right? Siyata d'shmai.
That's not doing a mitzvah, you're asking something for you.
Help me do a mitzvah.
It's not doing a miracle.
A miracle.
The person is probably doing a miracle.
Daven for a miracle. Hanina ben Doisi. Daven for a miracle. We're not discussing whether you should or you shouldn't. You can. You could daven. Clearly, Moshe Rabbeinu thought that the derech of doing Kehillas Yamsuf would be through tefillah, and Hashem told him, like, stop talking to me so much, like the tefillah. Yeah. Umatzinu b'neviim, says Reb Tzadok. Umatzinu b'neviim shesiper hakasav. The Torah there in Malachim Aleph, I believe. Siper hakasav kol ha'moifsim she'asa Eliyahu v'she'asa Elisha. You have arichus in the Tanakh about the miracles of Eliyahu Navi and Elisha. Zulas v'zulas mishar neviim loy niskar ma'ivseim. Other than that, we don't know any miracles from Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Amos, Yonah. We don't know any miracles. Miracle happened to Yonah, but he didn't perform miracles for the Jewish people. Why? Kfar Amru, because Chazal say in Megillah Yudalid, Nevuah shehutzrecha l'dairais nichtava, v'shalei hutzrecha l'dairais loy nichtava. The Gemara in Megillah says that not everything that happened is in the Torah. The only thing, not every nevuah that took place. The Gemara precedes this remark by saying, "Neviim hayu b'Yisrael kiflayim ki yotzei Mitzrayim." The Gemara says so there were hundreds of thousands of neviim. There were whole guilds of neviim, schools of neviim, bnei ha-neviim. There were all kinds of neviim. It used to be a thing. You go to a certain place, and that was a navi place, a navi school. There were cities of neviim. It was a thing. It's just not a thing anymore. But it's a hard by Sarisha. It's not a thing, but it was a thing to be nevuah. But it's not in the Torah. The Torah would be 1,000 volumes if it would have recorded every miracle that this one did and that one did. So it's not in there. What's in there? It says the Gemara, nevuah shehutzrecha l'dairais nichtava, nevuah shelai hutzrecha l'dairais nichtava. The only thing that's written, including miracles, including nevuahs, different prophecies, are only ones that we need today. You see, if you reverse engineer, it's very important to know that if there's something in the Tanakh, it means we need it today. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there because it has to be the Nevuah Shehutzrecha l'dairais. And there, the Gemara says with Al-Pi Pirush Rashi and Megillah that the purpose of a Navi was to give advice. Usually, was to give advice for Milchama. Go to war. Don't go to war. You could use a Navi now. Or to get people to do tshuva. We need that too. So the Navi was the great Mochiach Chesa'am. Those were really, the Rashi says that in Megillah, those are the two main purposes of a Navi. It wasn't to be a miracle worker. But let's just understand this deeply for a minute. Nevuah shehutzrecha l'dairais nichtava. If it's a nevuah that was for all times, then it's nichtava. Why is that? Why don't we have a record of everything? So your answer, well, this Torah is not a history book. Why should I have a answer everything? It's deeper than that. Torah, by definition, is netzach. It's an eternal document. So any nevuah, as important and as magnificent as it might have been, as miraculous as it might have been, it's not netzach unless it's for all times. So everything in the Torah is like nobody could come along and say, this is one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim, nobody could ever come along and say, oh, Torah huchlafu, as did most religions. Maybe we hold of the Torah, but huchlafu, like times have changed and now we need something new. So no, the Torah doesn't change. The Torah is netzach. If the Torah is going to be netzach, so then the Pashat Pshat is that a nevuah shaloi hutzrecha l'dairais loy nichtava. You understand this? It can't be that a nevuah shaloi hutzrecha l'dairais will be in there because then you have something in the Torah irrelevant for all times. And that's a stira to the major qualification of one of the major qualifications of being part of being canonized into the Torah. Why, by the way, to go one step deeper, why does everything in the Torah have to be netzach? Because Hashem is netzach. So Yisrael v'Iraisa v'Kutshabrichu Chatu. So also Klal Yisrael's netzach. No matter, like, nobody's going to be able to destroy us as a people. Impossible. Can't destroy Hashem. Can't destroy the Torah. These are permanent things that Hashem put into the Bria. So, therefore, says Reb Tzadok, for Amru Chazal, so therefore we may learn al korchach oisam sipurei amoifsim heim tzrichen l'dar. So it must be that anything that is recorded, like the nisim of Eliyahu Hanavi and the nisim of Elisha Hanavi, that has to be hutzrich l'dar. It wasn't just like Elisha. It wasn't just like he was like a Rebbe Shagai and he was able to do miracles, and Elisha did a few miracles, right? Elisha, like he made a bad stream into a good stream. He did the Pafei Shemen. That was Elisha, right? He did a bunch of miracles, mostly pertaining to Parnasa or Tzidkas Hatzadik or something like that. But he did these miracles. It must be they are hutzrich l'dar. Also, the nisim of Eliyahu Hanavi, which the Torah talks about, Sipurei Eliyahu. So that has to be eternal miracles. See, what was the main miracle of Eliyahu Hanavi? Har what? Yeah. So the main miracle was that his karbanos were miskabel and the Nevi'ai Baal were not miskabel. That was a miracle. The whole miracle. Well, because they were right. That's what I'm at. Where was the eternity there? Right. Where was the eternity there? Let's talk about it, Elias.
But not a great level considering it disappeared the next day.
Or a month. We still say that
it's to teach you not to go with these.
One of the Eliyahu Navi is credited by Chazal as one of the inventors, post Matan Torah, of Aveira Lishma. Sometimes you have to do, like, let's say, Esther, that was much lighter, that was Harben Bayis Rishon. There was, like, how do we know that there are times when you're allowed to do an Aveira Lishma, very complicated sugya. You could do an Aveira Lishma. I mean, your obvious example is Pikuach Nefesh, Doicha Kol HaTorah, but that's not really Aveira Lishma. That's not an Aveira.
Isn't the principle of Parashah that it's not an Aveira?
Hirasha. Okay, semantics. So Eliyahu Navi was machadish that nakuta of Hirasha and Aveira Lishma, and that's eternal. He did Shchutei Chutz. He did an Aveira. He did. It was by Nabamas. He did an Aveira. The whole miracle is an Aveira. So what do you learn from? What's the eternal lesson? Do Aveiras. And sometimes, sometimes if it's for Hashem's honor, you do an Aveira. You have to know the Gedarm. This is not a. I mean, we covered all three.
Yeah.
Gil always comes up with these. Yael was an Indian of Gila Arias, he's saying. Avodah Zarah was Eliyahu Navi, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
What was Shvichas Dam?
We don't have it. I'm saying these examples are
we still have a chance. Okay, so all these things are good. The point is that the Torah tells us only miracles which are netzach. Now, it says Rav Tzadok, he explains. That's almost like a side point. He says you should know, Kol Moifsei Eliyahu, did I skip here? Al Korachach Imkain, Al Korachach Oisam Sipurei HaMoifsem Em Tzrich L'Daris. V'af Al Pi Shahayu Rak Lefisha. Shal said these were like very temporary miracles. They didn't change the whole bria really. But they did open up new gates. They've opened up new possibilities from Shemayim. Kikol Moifsei Eliyahu. Now here's the thing that the miracles that Eliyahu and Navi did, Hayu al pi Torah, Val Yadeha. He did it through Limud Torah. What was Eliyahu's Limud Torah? So he's right. Says here, Yeridas ha'esh al yedei chidush Torah shechidush lahatir abama. You have to think hard to be matir the bamas. And he was matir Obama, and in schus of that chidush, lahatir abama, he was zoche to a nes. So that's called the nes. Litvish miracle, mamish. So al pi Torah. But I ask you not to fall into that trap. In other words, because this is not about like the koyach Torah. This is about a different ways to enact a miracle, and he's telling us Eliyahu's way was al pi Torah. Elisha, on the other hand, said no chidushim. Elisha, chol moifsei Elisha al yedei tefillah. Elisha dam, gam tov, but it's a different thing. Mashamar b'Megillah, and the Gemara says that before in Megillah Chav Zayin. Elisha da'avid berachami. Elisha worked with prayer. Elisha avid berachami. That was his tool. Rachami means tefillah. V'zacha, and through tefillah, zacha lepi shnayim Eliyahu. He did double the amount of cool things than Eliyahu and Navi. Elisha, the Talmud. So it says Reb Tzadok, Ki yoser yesh lifa al yedei tefillah. You can get further with tefillah than you can with Torah. I would, like, a lot of times you hear people Torah, it's not really Torah anyway. Like I'm just making stuff up, but like you have to have Torah, and then even if it's Torah, it has to be Lishma. Like, even if it's Torah, it has to be Lishma. But he says, Ki yoser yesh lifa al yedei tefillah. Avol mikol malkaim tells us, Masha al pi Torah gadol. You're going to get qualitatively speaking, you're going to get a bigger miracle out of Torah than you will get out of tefillah, but you get more miracles out of tefillah. Masha amru beparakama de Shabbos. And this we see in Masechta Shabbos, menichin chaye olam v'oiskin b'chaye shah. This is so important to learn. I want to learn inside. The Gemara tells a story in Shabbos. Shabbos Daf Yud. This lashon of menichin chaye olam v'oiskin b'chaye shah says a few places in Shas. Like most famous one, I think, is related to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He came out of the cave and he said, "What's everybody busy with chaye shah when you should be busy with chaye olam?" So the simple pshat is like, what do you like? You're running around and working for parnasa and getting involved with all kinds of things which are temporal. Better be oisik b'chaye olam haba, things that are permanent or things that are their next world. That's the usual pshat. I'm not sure if that's the right pshat, but the Gemara says a different story here. The Gemara in Shabbos at the beginning in Daf Yud speaks about different things that the Amoraim did when they davened. They put on special jacket, they put on special Rava bar Rav Huna, Ramei Puzmike Umatzle, he would always put on his shoes before he davened, covered. Another one of the Amoraim always took off their shoes when they davened. Interesting things, but the Gemara says the following. Rava, that's our Rava, the Rava, Chaziel Rav Hamnuna. Rava was watching Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna was his Rebbe, one of his Rebbeim. He was a Dor HaKodim. the Iker Rebbe of Rava was Rabbah, but he also had a Rebbe, Rav Hamnuna. And Rav Hamnuna, Rava Chazi Rav Hamnuna, the Kamarich B'tzloi say that he was doing his long davening. Davening, big long Shemoneh Esrei. Omar, so Rava said to him, right, Menichen chaye oilam v'oisken b'chaye shah. Well, you're so busy davening for? Don't daven so much. Better learn Torah. That's the pasuk of Shah, right? Menichen chaye oilam. You're using your time with chaye ha'oilam v'oisken b'chaye shah. Dr. Rashi, chaye oilam. What's chaye oilam? What's chaye shah? Chaye oilam, Torah. Chaye oilam. You should be learning Torah. So he said to his Rebbe, Utfila, this that you're davening, Sareh Chaye Shahi. That's just to get things done right here in front of us. L'refuah, says Rashi, l'sholom, l'mezainos. So what are you busy with Chaye Shah? Do something meaningful. You're davening for. So that's what Rashi says. The Tzadok argues with this Rashi, and he says, here he says it just in one line, but here he says in a few lines. As a sefer, one of the many Tfarim of Tzadok that we have is on Masechta Shabbos. It's 3 pages. It's called Levushay Tzedakah. And here he says, what was Rava's point in telling Rav Hamnuna that you're davening too much? Menichin chaye olam. Ein barashi. Okay, we just did that. V'kosher. The gam b'tfilah yesh kama bracha shem l'chaye olam. It's not so simple. Not every davening is for gashmius. What's an example of a tefillah that's for ruchnius? There you go. Hashivenu avinu zarzach. A lot of tefillos are for ruchnius. So, yesh kama bracha shem l'chaye olam ba'oid. Furthermore, chaye olam de b'Torah pirusha deschar l'olam haba. If you're saying that, why don't you do things that you're going to get schar in olam haba, which is what he's saying, right? That's what Rabbi said. Do things you're going to get permanent schar for, not just like a refuah shalema or something like that. Im kain gam b'tefillah schar mitzvah so tefillah yeshne l'olam haba. So davening is a mitzvah, and when you daven, you're doing a mitzvah, and you get a schar in olam haba. So,
Yeah, you could invest better.
You could better invest. Called mitzvahs, but it's not worse than mitzvahs. So any of the Taryag mitzvahs. So let's ask the question more cynically. Every time somebody's doing a mitzvah, we should tell them stop doing the mitzvah and start learning. Put on the esrog. What are you wasting time? L'chein, says Reb Tzadok, he wants to lulei divrei Rashi. This is great. If I could put Rashi aside for a second, he says Efshar loymar. Maybe the pshat is the ein ha pirush chay olam ha'olam haba v'chay shah ha'olam hazeh. You thought that one is olam chay olam is olam haba. Ella, what it rather means, the chay shah ratzaloymer lefi shah. V'chaye olam ratzaloymar b'tzmidus. Lupshat. Chaye shah means it's a temporary fix. Chaye olam means it's a permanent fix. So here's the thing. A tefillah, ratzaloymar b'tzmidus kol yimei chayav. It'll always work. Mashenamar b'shmo v'yashav sham ad olam. V'hainu al pi mashisa b'soita daf chaf aleph. The mitzvah, the Gemara says in Soita, mitzvah loy matzli, ela be'iden de'isa asik bey. This Gemara, by the way, is in a couple of places, but a mitzvah only works to protect you while you're doing the mitzvah. You don't get the mitzvah in the bank in this world. L'machar l'kabel schar. So even by the sugya of shluchei mitzvah ein nizaken, so the Gemara qualifies. Well, we see a lot of people are shluchei mitzvah. So the Gemara says it's got to really be in the mitzvah. It really has to be that you're going for the mitzvah to have this guarantee of shluchei mitzvah and nizaken. Like, it's hard to imagine that if somebody gives you, like in America, $1 and says, deliver it in Israel, that, okay, now I have a reason for my trip. It's, anyways, while I'm at it, like coming to Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah. What do you need? Maybe going back, you need a lot of schlusim. Coming to Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah sase probably of the Torah to come to Eretz Yisrael. But in any case, a mitzvah only works while you're doing the mitzvah, whereas Torah will work forever. Now, this goes back to our Reb Tzadok by us, who says because Torah is an actual fix in the pre-bria Chomer Gelem of the world. So Torah is a fix. You're creating an art that's going to be there forever. Tefillah, as he says over here in Tzidkas Hatzadik, actually works better, but it only works for now. So it's like a quality-quantity type of thing. So from an Eichus point of view, Rava's point was, why are you getting involved in a temporary fix when you could be involved in a permanent fix? You could actually change the world through Torah. And that's what he says, V'zesh Amar, and that's, here he quotes, this is in Sefer Levushay Tzedakah, that's what Rava meant when he said to Rav Hamnuna, Menichen Chaya Olam, the Hainu Torah Shematzelos Olam. Torah is a fix. It's a real fix. It's like it just reminds me of like you could take a medicine and get rid of your headache. So you're treating the symptom, but you haven't really gotten to the bottom of why am I getting headaches. Whereas if you deal with it, holistically or nutritionally, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just giving emotionally. So then you get to the siba of the thing, and now you're under the hood. So once you're under the hood, you can make a fix so you don't get headaches, and you could throw away your Tylenols. Right? No more alcohol because you made a fix ba'etza. So that's what we should all be trying to do. I don't know if we know how to do it, but that's what we should be trying to do. You fix things from the makar. So tefillah is like every other mitzvah. It's be'idin de osik bab matzli. While you're doing it, it works great. Tefillah obviously works a little bit. This is the difference between Eliyahu Navi and Elisha. Elisha did more miracles than Eliyahu, but Eliyahu did better ones. Yeah, you have to think of how this works. Allow me to deep dive for 1 minute. The difference between Torah and mitzvahs. Right, we do both, yes? Torah and mitzvahs. Some people learn Torah as one of the mitzvahs, but it's apparently it's much more than that. Torah is one thing and mitzvah is another thing. So you find like a halacha is about this. For instance, when it comes to doing a mitzvah, buying tefillin, buying esrog, whatever. So there's a halacha. You're not supposed to spend all your money on a mitzvah, even though it says b'chol moedecha. That's for certain things, but for your basic mitzvah, I don't know how you figure out that fifth. I never understood this clearly. Is that what money of what you have in the bank? 1/5 you should go for an esrog, but the sentiment of the Gemara is when it comes to mitzvahs, do what you can afford. Like do mitzvahs, Hashem, do what you can afford. That's the pashup shot. By Torah, Limunat Torah, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. You don't find any Elu Dvarim Shein Lahem Shiur. You can learn Torah like Rav Shimon Bar Yochai all day long and all night long. And the Gemara argues maybe it's not the right way to do it. Maybe you should work with. You should also work for. I'm not going to get to that question, but there's no shiur. Elu Dvarim Shein Lahem Shiur. Mitzvahs have a shiur. Lamata, and Torah doesn't have a shiur. So what's the difference between Torah and mitzvah? It's very simple. Mitzvah is something we do for Hashem. Torah is something Hashem gave to us. Hashem is the makor of nitzchias. So it can't be that it has a shiur. Whereas mitzvahs are part of what we do for Hashem, so to speak. We're taking something in our Gashmias world, something physical, and we're being makdish, bring a korban. But there's a limit to what we should take from our gashmius, because this is us. Hashem doesn't have any limits. So elu dvarim she'ein lehem shiur. Also, whenever you see the Indian of Zman, so you're talking about something which is limited. And when you're talking about something which is unlimited, there's no Indian of Zman. For instance, take the halachas of mitzvah saseh she'azman grama. Is Torah mitzvah saseh she'azman grama? What? Right. So women are mechuyev to learn? It's a different pasuk. V'shinantam levanecha v'lo livnesecha. The Torah exempts women from the chiyuv of Talmud Torah. The chiyuv of Talmud Torah. They have a mitzvah of Talmud Torah. The chiyuv of Talmud Torah from a different pasuk. Why? The Gemara says. Gemara asks a question. Tepaglei. Not the Gemara. Toshas asks a question. Tepaglei. Mishum mitzvah saseh hazman grama v'yigisa by yohimam v'layla. Those are zmanim. No. Elu dvarim she'ein lehem shiur. So it means to say that it's impossible to have a zman grama by something which is coming from Hashem. Something that we do, so now it depends. Is the Zman Grama, not Zman Grama? So Torah, it's good to learn in Torah, right? But during the day, during the night, while you're sleeping, everything. Tefillah has Zmanim. Tefillah has certain Zmanim. Now you can daven Shachars, now you can daven Mincha, now you can daven Marv. You can't daven Marv when you're supposed to daven Shachars. And even according to the Gemara, it says, Levai, Shishpal Adam Kol Ayam Kulai, where it says the brachas, the Shita says, good, daven all day long, Levai, which is a little bit different than this, but the point is, that's Tefillas Nadafa. So it means to say, this is like the interesting thing, what all this means is that Chaye Olam and Chaye Shah today has been redefined. The Chaye Olam and Chaye Shah, Chaye Olam doesn't mean for Olam Haba, Chaye Shah for Olam Haza, which is temporal. That's what Rashi says. Rashi does say that, and so does the Mesil Sisharim. But he's saying, take a look at a new aspect to this, that Chaye Olam, why are you doing something which is only going to work temporarily when you can do something which is going to work permanently in this world? Toch Olam. You're making a fix in the world. That's the koach of Torah. You see, I give you a good mashal of this, I think. That, I always ask myself this question. Let's say you go to a big tzaddik, and he gives you a bracha. So, okay, gave you a bracha. Should be matzliach. And now you're passing through Bnei Brak again. So you say, let's stop in and get another bracha. But you already got a bracha. How many brachas do you need? You could say the border barrier, I guess, but like how many brachas do you need? Like if you go to a tzaddik, you get a bracha. You have a bracha. I know that the Rav Scheinberg one time went to the Chafetz Chaim, and he was learning with tremendous hasmada ad kedei kach, as the story goes, that the Chafetz Chaim came in and he missed him. Like he was busy in the Beis Medrash, and that he lost his appointment or whatever with the Chafetz Chaim. They thought you could talk to him between 2 and 2:15, and he got involved in learning in the Beis Medrash. He didn't notice Chafetz Chaim came, so the Chafetz Chaim came over to him, and he said, "B'schus zeh, you will see all your grandchildren learning Torah." Okay, you only need to hear that once from the Chafetz Chaim. Can you say it again? That's our insecurity. By the way, I'll be Torah. So, like I always have this question: how often do you have to go back? So I'm saying like this. This is my theory. It depends what the tzaddik is doing. If he's davening for you, so be'idin de matzle. I'm saying be'idin de tefillah matzle. When he's davening, so for whatever he's davening for, that works. If he's kind of learning in your like if he's using Torah, so I know when people came to the Brisker Rav, Olav Shalom, and they asked him for a bracha, and he didn't like it. He said to the person, let's sit down and learn Torah Lishma for 5 minutes. And he would learn with them for 5 minutes. So this was a very clever way, by the way, of getting people not to come for brachas. It's Yodua. I'm not saying the person didn't like it. You know, he didn't like when people came to bracha. I don't think, anyways, but he didn't like when people asked for brachas. But if you go, let's say, to a different kind of a tzaddik, different tzaddikim do different things. My father-in-law, Shalom, so he told me that he knew Rabbi Chanan Wasser in Tel Yeshiva. Rabbi Chanan, he was my father-in-law, my wife's father. So he was obviously he was like I don't know, like 6'5" or something. He was like a giant and big, very intimidating to me as a bacher. I mean, like, you know, wow. But also the more important part is he learned with Rabbi Chanan. And Rabbi Chanan, people always also asked him for brachas. He was a tzaddik. People asked him for brachas. And he would always say Shema with them. Let's be Makabel Ol Malchus Shemayim together. That's what he did. And he put his hand on their eyes. And he said, say the Shema with me. He would say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Different things that tzaddikim, different tricks that different tzaddikim had.
What's the big deal to give a bracha?
Altogether, you mean? Well, that's what we're learning. You want a person needs to.
Why were they so like anti-Yisrael bracha?
Oh, I don't know.
You can't give someone like a good wish.
I don't know. Maybe he uses up schusim. Or I think the real answer to that, Rabbi, is that it's not the derech haTorah to look for these kind of miracles. I tell you a personal thing that not a personal thing that my mirror. I don't do any miracles. I don't know how to do miracles at all. But the same Rav Scheinberg used to stay in my house. It was a big schus that we had, all the years I was in Muncie, even in Australia, stayed in my house. And people came all the time. Besof Yamav, when he was like 100 or something, like 98, 99. So, I mean, it was lines and lines and lines of people. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people a day. And they were asking for a bracha. And I gave them a bracha, I gave them a bracha. So, but it somehow bothered me on a very deep level. Like this Rosh Hashiva, you could talk to about Ksois, about Nesivus, about any Bir Halacha, about any Rebina. And he was like so bucky, such a lamdan miflag, and like asking for brachas. Like it felt to me like missing, cheapening, a little bit. But it worked. I mean, not only that, but people came back to say how the brachas worked. I mean, like really crazy stuff. People would come back. I'm sure they worked. And I once asked Rav Scheinberg about it. When we were Bachrim, we saw he was like that tzaddik, right? So asked him for a bracha. He would give us a bracha. It's still there. It's a bracha. But so that's what he told me. He said when the Chafetz Chaim gave him a bracha, the Chafetz Chaim was 80, I think, just turning 80. So he decided when he became 80, Rav Scheinberg, that he could give a bracha. Give brachas. It's like a din of a zaken. So he asked, what's he thinking about it so much? But to me personally, it bothered, like it was missing the godless task. Although I would be very happy to get a bracha from any great gadol. I'm quite open for it. But the point is this. The point is that when you go for a bracha, if it's a limud HaTorah, this is my point. If it's a limud HaTorah, if it is using the koyach HaTorah, so then you never have to go back again. It's a permanent Torah, whatever that means. It's difficult, but it's very quality bracha, very eichistic. He doesn't even call it a bracha. I'm calling it a bracha. What he calls it is a nes. You can get a nes al pi Torah. I don't even know if you have to go to a great man to do it. Just learn Torah, and you can be zocheh to a nes. Tefillah, that'll work that'll work, and it'll work in a way even better, and we should do tefillah, but it doesn't work as permanently. So again, let's leave it with this: Chaya Olam and Chaya Shah. So what Rava was saying to Rav Hamnuna was like, you could do something more permanent to help the world. Why are you doing something more temporary to help the world? And the last line in this Rav Tzadok, close. K'moshe Amru, the Parakama de Shabbos. I'm going back to the Tzidkas Hatzadik. Here he explains it more in detail. This is the pshat in the Gemara. Manichin Chaya Olam va'oiskin b'Chaya Shah. Says Rav Tzadok v'hamamik yavin. If you'll think about this, you'll finally understand it. Okay. Thank you very much.